Hi, this is Lorraine Watry, and this is part 5 of a watercolor demo of Waterlilies. Here's the painting as it is so far, and I begin this video by working in the water in the darker parts of the water. I've already got some blue lighter color strips and shapes on that side, and now I'm painting in some of those darker areas around those lighter strips. I'm varying the colors that I'm using in that area, still keeping them in the dark value range, medium to dark. And I'm probably using things like ultramarine blue, some quinacridone gold, some olive green, and this painting really was like kind of working with puzzle pieces, so it's just a lot of varied shapes and patterns. I'm getting a little darker in that area. And here is the painting again, a little bit farther along. Some close-ups of the water and the shapes that are in the water, and some of the changes of color that are around the water lily pads. And as you can see, I'm working from a photograph, and that's my photo that I took from the Denver Botanic Gardens. However, the original photo did not have all 3 water lilies in that corner. I used my photo software program to add a couple water lilies and adjust the composition so that it would be a better composition. I added a little bit of the kind of peachy orange or kind of burgundy color in that one area, and I'm looking for those interesting places around the water. I don't want my water to just be a flat blue or dark color. I want to look for all those different reflections that are happening. And if you haven't seen my earlier videos in this series, you can see I'm working with a large brush. That is a number 38 golden fleece that I purchased from Cheap Joe's online. And I've had it for probably about, maybe about 17 years now. And I still really love it. It gets a great tip to it so I can get into the smaller areas. And it holds a lot of paint so that if I have to work a larger area, I'm not having to constantly go back and get more paint. Still working around the water lily pads and reflections. So that's why there's some larger areas right there that I'm not painting. And I believe those still have masking on them. When I paint, I use my palette in such a way that I take the colors out of the wells and I put them in the center area, and I pull out colors that I think I may use in the current area where I'm working. So I may have 3 or 4 colors out on my center area, and then I can either mix those on the palette or I can mix them on the painting too if I want. Now I've started to put in a little bit more of that lighter blue, and I had pre-mixed that blue and had it in a film container so that when I needed that color again I could use it and have it ready. I could thin it with a little bit of water if I needed to, or I could adjust it and add a touch of another color into it so that I could change the color if I wanted to, but my base color was ready to go. Here I've started to go back around some of those lighter areas with a darker color. I've switched to a smaller brush and I'm starting to put in some of those little areas. Now I'm back to my big brush and I'm putting in some of the kind of shadow areas or darker areas that are under some of those shapes. That was kind of a quick pass of the overall painting. I generally paint with a paper towel in my left hand, and I may do a lot of drying of my brush, so I may dip my brush in water and clean it off with a paper towel. And then sometimes I will go get color, and if I feel like I want that brush to be just a little drier, I might dry the brush just a little bit. I'm continuing to work on that foreground left section and getting in some of those darker areas around the lighter blue. And I've got some greens going in and then some blues, changing the color and making the water interesting. I believe I'm painting dry into dry in that area. I haven't pre-wet the paper. Still looking for those unusual patterns and shapes. So I've gone back up to another section, working in some of the darks in that area. It really helped me to kind of move around the different sections of this painting so that I could make sense of all the different shapes and areas that were in it. So I would work in one area and then I might move to a different section for a little while. And it also helps to get color on sort of everywhere so that you can start judging the values and you can see whether or not your values are working. So I would apply the color and a certain value, and then if I decided it wasn't dark enough, then I could go back and add to it. Now I'm taking off some of that masking that I had on there to protect my water lilies and the water lily pads. And that's just a rubber cement pickup, and it helps remove masking. And on some of those masked areas, then I'll take a small brush and use color that is around that white area and clean up those edges. And then I will also, that brush right there is a scrubber brush, I will also lift some of those areas and soften them so that the masking doesn't look as harsh. Right there I'm just cleaning up an edge again. Masking can look rough sometimes, so it's good to go back in and adjust it before you continue. So I will continue working on this painting in part 6, and it's starting to come to the point where I can get toward working on the water lilies themselves. So please follow along, and I hope you've enjoyed this. If you're interested in finding out more about watercolor, you can follow my blog at Watercolor Reflection, or it is titled Watercolor Reflections. It's at LorraineWatry blogspot.com.